Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The night was unusually quiet in the deep woods of Oregon. The moon hung low, its silver light barely filtering through the dense canopy of towering pines and firs. The stillness shattered suddenly with a loud, electrifying crackle as a streak of greenish-blue light blazed across the sky. Moments later, a muffled thud resonated in the forest, accompanied by the faint glow of something otherworldly. Nestled in the underbrush, Zara coughed as she pried herself free from the twisted remains of her spacecraft. The sleek pod, designed for single-passenger reconnaissance, now lay in ruin, its once flawless surface marred by Earth's harsh atmosphere and the crash landing. Sparks sizzled from exposed panels, and the hum of her ship's energy core faded into silence. Panic clawed at her chest. She was stranded. Zara stood no taller than a human's thumb. Her skin shimmered faintly, a pale lavender hue that glowed softly in the darkness. Her delicate antennae twitched, scanning the area for threats. Back on Nebulon, her people had legends about the giants of Earth, enormous, ravenous creatures who devoured anything small and helpless. The stories had always seemed exaggerated, even humorous, until now. Every snap of a twig and rustle of leaves made her heart race. She knew she had to act quickly. The crash had left an energy signature that was likely visible for miles. She grabbed a small emergency satchel from the wreckage, filled with survival essentials, and slipped into the shadows of the forest floor. The air around her was alive with unfamiliar sounds, the chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of wind through the trees. Zara's sensitive ears picked up the rhythmic thud of footsteps. Her antennae quivered. Someone or something was coming. She darted behind a clump of moss, her lavender glow dimming as she activated a camouflage mode. From her hiding place, she peered out and saw the source of the noise, a towering figure, a human male. He was tall, with a rugged appearance, clad in a flannel shirt and hiking boots. A flashlight beam swept across the forest floor, illuminating Zara's ship. The man froze, staring at the wreckage. Zara's heart pounded as he crouched to examine the strange object. His movements were careful, almost gentle, as if he were handling something fragile. This wasn't the behavior of a ravenous predator. Confusion mingled with her fear, but she remained hidden, unsure of what he would do next. "Whoa," the man muttered to himself, his voice a low rumble. He brushed his hand over the metallic surface of the ship, his eyes wide with wonder. "What is this?" Zara weighed her options. She could stay hidden and hope he left, or she could reveal herself and try to communicate. She glanced at her satchel, where a small translator device was tucked away. It wasn't perfect, but it might work. Summoning every ounce of courage, Zara stepped out from behind the moss. Her tiny form cast a faint shadow in the beam of his flashlight. The man's eyes widened as he spotted her. He froze, his expression shifting from surprise to awe. Hello," he said hesitantly, his voice softer now, as if he feared startling her. Zara's voice trembled as she activated her translator. Please," she stammered, her words barely audible over the device's hum. "Do not eat me." The man blinked, then let out a laugh-a sound that startled her but lacked malice. "Eat you," he said, his tone warm and amused. "No way." "What are you?" Zara tilted her head, studying his face. There was no hunger in his eyes, only curiosity and something that resembled kindness. She took a cautious step closer, still ready to flee if needed. "I am lost," she admitted. "My ship. It is broken." The man nodded slowly, his expression softening. "Well, you're not alone anymore," he said. "I'm Tom. And I think you could use some help." For the first time since the crash, Zara felt a flicker of hope. Maybe humans weren't the monsters she had been taught to F. Tom stared at the tiny being standing in the beam of his flashlight, his mind racing. She was no taller than his thumb, with lavender skin that shimmered faintly in the dark, and a pair of delicate antennae twitching atop her head. Her eyes were large and expressive, glimmering with a mix of fear and determination. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, and yet, somehow, she seemed more fragile than alien. "Don't eat me," she had said, her tiny voice amplified by the translator device she clutched. Tom crouched slowly to her level, careful not to make any sudden movements. "Eat you," he repeated, shaking his head with a small chuckle. "I'm not going to eat you. I promise." Zara blinked, her antennae twitching as she scanned his face. He didn't look like a predator, no sharp teeth, no drooling maw. Instead, his expression held curiosity and, perhaps, kindness. Still, her heart pounded. Nebulonian tales about humans described them as unpredictable, their moods swinging from gentle to dangerous in an instant. Could she trust him? Tom lowered his flashlight, aiming it to the side so the light wouldn't blind her. "You said your ship is broken?" he asked, glancing at the smoldering wreckage behind her. Zara hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Yes. I was on a mission. To collect samples." She gestured at the forest around them. "But my craft malfunctioned. I am stranded." "Samples?" Tom asked, raising an eyebrow. "For what?" "For research," Zara replied cautiously. "My people study ecosystems across the galaxy. Your planet is unique." Tom nodded thoughtfully, taking in her words. "Well, you picked a good spot. This forest is full of life." He extended his hand, palm up, toward her. Zara flinched and took a step back, but Tom didn't move further. "Hey," he said gently, "I'm not going to hurt you. I just thought maybe you'd like a better place to talk than out here in the open. You can climb on if you want." Zara's antennae twitched again, scanning for danger. His voice was calm, his posture non-threatening, but she couldn't shake the nagging voice in her mind warning her to run. Yet, what choice did she have? Her ship was destroyed, and she had no way to survive in this unfamiliar world alone. Slowly, tentatively, Zara stepped onto his hand. The warmth of his skin surprised her, and she marveled at how careful he was, moving his hand steadily so as not to jostle her. He stood, cradling her gently, and began walking back toward the trail. Tom's cabin was a short hike from the crash site, a modest structure tucked into a clearing. Zara peered over the edge of his hand as they approached, her anxiety mingling with curiosity. She had never seen a human dwelling before. Lights glowed softly through the windows, and smoke curled from the chimney, carrying the earthy scent of burning wood. Inside, Tom set her down on the table, next to a mug of tea that dwarfed her. He grabbed a jar and carefully placed some moss, leaves, and a few drops of water inside before setting it down near her. "I figured you might want something familiar," he said. Zara stepped into the jar, inspecting it. It wasn't perfect, but the moss felt soft beneath her feet, and the moisture was refreshing. She looked up at Tom and gave a small nod. "Thank you," she said, her voice still worried but less trembling. "So, what's your name?" Tom asked, pulling up a chair and sitting across from her. "Zara," she replied. "And you are?" "Tom?" He nodded. "That's me." "So, Zara, how long were you supposed to stay on Earth?" "A few days," she said. "Just long enough to gather samples. My people do not linger on foreign planets. It is dangerous." "Well," Tom said with a smile, "it looks like you're stuck here a little longer. But don't worry. I'll help you figure something out." Zara tilted her head, studying him. He spoke with such certainty, as if her survival was a given. On Nebulan, everyone focused on efficiency and duty. Kindness was a luxury, not an expectation. Yet this giant seemed to offer it freely. "What do you want in return?" Zara asked, her voice cautious. Tom shrugged. Nothing. You're a guest. That's just how we treat people. Or aliens, I guess. His words made Zara's antennae twitch with confusion and something she couldn't quite name. Gratitude? Hope? She sat down on the moss, her body still tense but her mind beginning to relax. Perhaps humans weren't as monstrous as she'd been taught. Perhaps this one, at least, was different. That night, as Tom set up a tiny light near her makeshift habitat, Zara gazed out at the stars through the cabin's window. Her mission had taken an unexpected turn, but maybe just maybe it wouldn't be as dire as she'd feared. In the days following Zara's crash, an unlikely routine developed between her and Tom. Every morning, Tom would bring her fresh pollen and nectar collected from nearby flowers. Zara's people consumed only natural, unprocessed sustenance, and she explained this to Tom in her precise, scientific manner. He listened attentively, his curiosity unflagging. One morning, as the golden sunlight poured through the cabin's windows, Tom set down a thimble filled with nectar and a small petal laden with pollen beside Zara's mossy jar. "Breakfast is served," he said with a grin. Zara, perched on a leaf, steadied him with an analytical gaze. "You are unusually kind for a species that consumes flesh," she remarked. Tom laughed, leaning back in his chair. "Not all humans are as terrifying as your stories make us sound. Though," he added with a playful smirk, "I guess some of us have a bad reputation for a reason." Zara's antennae twitched as she considered his words. "On Nebulan, survival often necessitates caution," she said. "We are taught that trust can be a dangerous gamble." Tom's face softened. "That's not a bad lesson, but it's a little sad, too. I mean, if you never trust anyone, how do you make friends?" Zara tilted her head. "Friendship is not as prevalent among my people as it seems to be here. Efficiency and duty are prioritized over connection." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "That's different, but I guess it makes sense for a species with a whole planet to manage. Still, you're here now, and we're friends whether your people approve or not." The word friend hung in the air. Zara had studied human language extensively, but she never thought the term would apply to her. She nodded hesitantly, unsure of what friendship entailed but curious to find out. As days turned into weeks, Zara and Tom began to share more about their worlds. Zara's scientific expertise and fascination with Earth's flora led her to ask endless questions about the local ecosystem. Tom, a former biology student and avid hiker, found himself excitedly sharing knowledge he hadn't used in years. One evening, Zara perched on Tom's shoulder as they walked through the forest. She marveled at the towering trees, their canopies glowing with the golden light of sunset. "Your planet is inefficient," she commented. "So much biomass devoted to height when shorter plants could sustain the same ecosystem." Tom chuckled. "True, but isn't it beautiful? Not everything has to be efficient. Sometimes, things just are." Zara fell silent, contemplating his words. On Nebulan, aesthetics were secondary to function. Yet here, surrounded by the chaotic splendor of Earth's wilderness, she began to understand why humans might value beauty for its own sake. As they reached the clearing, Tom pointed to the horizon, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "There's your home up there somewhere, huh?" Zara followed his gaze. "Yes," she said softly. "Though it feels farther away now than ever before." "You miss it?" Tom asked. "Yes," Zara admitted. "But I am also grateful to see this, to meet you." Tom smiled, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "I'm glad you're here too, Zara. You've made me see the world in a whole new way." Their bond deepened as they worked together on a project Zara had proposed, dispersing the spores she had brought from Nebulan. These spores, she explained, were designed to enhance ecosystems by promoting plant growth and restoring balance to overused soil. Tom was skeptical at first, but agreed to help after Zara demonstrated the spore's harmlessness. Each evening, armed with Zara's advanced knowledge and Tom's experience with the local terrain, they ventured into the forest. Zara guided Tom to ideal planting spots, using her scanner to detect nutrient-depleted soil. Tom handled the physical labor, carefully sowing the spores while Zara supervised from her perch on his shoulder. Their teamwork was seamless, and the results were immediate. Within days, the forest floor began to bloom with vibrant patches of new growth. Plants that had been struggling to survive thrived, their leaves greener and their blossoms more radiant. Zara couldn't contain her excitement. "This is unprecedented," she exclaimed one evening as they surveyed their work. "Your planet's biodiversity responds more quickly than anticipated." Tom grinned. "I'd say it's a team effort. You're the brains, and I'm the brawn." Zara chuckled, a sound that surprised even her. Laughter was rare on Nebulan, reserved for specific social rituals. Yet here, it felt natural, comforting. As they walked back to the cabin that night, Zara felt a warmth she couldn't quite name. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just surviving on Earth, she was thriving, thanks to a human who had shown her the value of trust, friendship, and, perhaps, an efficiency. Zara stood on the edge of the cabin's windowsill, gazing up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, her home planet, Nebulan, shimmered as a faint speck of light among countless others. She felt a pang of homesickness, but quickly brushed it aside. There was still work to do. Behind her, Tom was packing supplies for their nightly mission. His movements were now practiced, methodical, a stark contrast to the fumbling uncertainty of their first few outings. Zara glanced at him, her tiny frame illuminated by the soft glow of the desk lamp. She marveled at how natural their partnership had become. "Ready, Captain?" Tom teased, glancing over his shoulder. Zara smirked, a gesture that had become second nature during her time on Earth. "As ready as you are, Lieutenant." Tom chuckled, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "Then let's get to it." The forest was alive with sound as they ventured out, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze, the occasional distant hoot of an owl. Zara perched on Tom's shoulder, her scanner in hand, directing him toward areas in need of restoration. The spores from her ship had proven to be a miraculous tool, accelerating plant growth and reviving struggling ecosystems. As they approached a clearing, Zara's scanner emitted a soft chime. "Here," she said, pointing toward a patch of dry, cracked soil. "This area has been depleted. It's an ideal candidate for spore dispersal." Tom knelt, removing a small vial of the glowing, bioluminescent spores from his bag. He opened it carefully, letting the fine particles drift onto the soil. Within moments, the ground seemed to come alive, faint green shoots sprouting and unfurling like time-lapse footage brought to life. "Never gets old," Tom murmured, watching the transformation. Zara nodded, her antennae twitching with satisfaction. "Your planet's ecosystems are remarkably responsive. I underestimated the adaptability of Earth's biology." "High praise from a scientist of the stars," Tom said, grinning. As they worked, Zara felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. Her mission on Earth had shifted from mere survival to something far more meaningful. She wasn't just gathering data, she was making a difference. The following night, as they prepared to head out again, a low hum filled the air. Zara froze, her antennae stiffening. Tom frowned, looking around. "What is it?" "Something familiar," Zara said, her voice barely a whisper. Outside, the hum grew louder, accompanied by a faint light in the sky. Zara's heart raced as she recognized the distinct glow of a Nebulonian transport vessel. Her people had found her. Tom followed her gaze, his brow furrowing. "Is that one of yours?" "Yes," Zara replied, her voice tinged with both relief and apprehension. "They've come for me." The vessel descended, its sleek, reflective surface shimmering under the moonlight. It landed in the clearing outside the cabin, and a hatch opened with a hiss. Two figures emerged, their forms similar to Zara's but slightly taller, their lavender skin glimmering more brightly in the darkness. One of them stepped forward, addressing Zara in their native tongue. "Zara, you are safe. We have tracked your signal. Are you unharmed?" "I am unharmed," Zara replied, switching to her native language. "And I have much to report." The Nebulonian's gaze shifted to Tom, their expression unreadable. "You have allied with a human?" Zara nodded. "He has aided me greatly. Without him, I would not have survived." The second Nebulonian studied Tom with mild curiosity. "It is unexpected. Humans are not known for their altruism." Zara bristled at the comment. "This one is different. He has shown kindness, ingenuity, and respect for our mission." Tom, sensing the tension, raised his hands. I don't understand what you're saying, but I'm guessing it's about me. Just want you to know, I come in peace." Zara translated his words, and the Nebulonians exchanged glances. The first one finally nodded. "It seems you were correct, Zara. This human has proven useful." Tom chuckled nervously. "I'll take that as a compliment." Zara turned to Tom, her expression softening. "They have come to take me home." Tom's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. "That's great, Zara. You deserve to go back." "I do," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I will miss this place." "And you." Tom crouched, bringing himself eye level with her. "Hey, you've got a whole universe out there waiting for you. But if you ever find yourself in this neck of the woods again, you know where to find me." Zara nodded, her antennae drooping slightly. "Thank you, Tom. For everything." As she stepped toward the Nebulonian vessel, Zara paused. Reaching into her satchel, she pulled out a small vial of spores. "Take this," she said, handing it to Tom. "Use it wisely. Your planet needs caretakers like you." Tom accepted the vial, his eyes glistening. "I will. I promise." The Nebulonian ship ascended into the sky, its light fading as it disappeared among the stars. Tom stood in the clearing for a long time, staring up at the heavens. In his hand, the vial of glowing spores pulsed softly, a reminder of the tiny alien girl who had changed his life. Back on Nebulon, Zara looked out a viewport at the distant blue-green dot of Earth. She felt a strange ache in her chest, a longing for the wild forests, the chaotic beauty of the planet, and the human who had shown her the power of connection. Their paths had crossed by chance, but the impact of their bond would endure, rippling through the stars and the soil alike.